Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to anti-haul number 14. If you are new to my anti-hauls, this is a series on my channel that was originally inspired by Kimberly Clark over on Makeup Tube, who started the concept of the anti-haul, at least as far as I know, in that world. And I like to do anti-hauls for all the tarot and oracle decks that I am not going to buy or didn't cave on, didn't buy, didn't back, all that kind of thing. So we're going to be talking about mass market decks I'm not going to buy, decks I'm not going to pre-order, indie decks I'm not going to buy, and Kickstarters that I did not back. So if you are interested in all the things that I told myself no to, keep watching. The very first thing I want to talk about are decks that I'm not keeping. Now this is a new category that I added to the anti-haul last time or the time before. I can't remember when I started it, but recently-ish in the series, The Lifetime of Anti-Hauls. I like to do this because I like to tell you guys the things that didn't work out just as much as I like to tell you all the things that I love and am enjoying and working with and having fun with. This time, there's only one deck that I have to report on, and that is a deck that I have decided I'm not going to be keeping. Hold your horses, buckle up. It is the Playful Heart Tarot. Now, before you come for me in the comments, I have a very good reason. This is the Playful Heart Tarot, the first edition. If you have been around on my channel, you've probably heard me rave about this deck. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. I love it to death. But this is the first edition Playful Heart Tarot. It has served me very, very well. And I love this deck for inner child work. I just love it, period. It is stunningly beautiful. It's got this really great playful energy. It's super emotive. You guys have heard me rave about it many a time on the channel. So why? Why, Lisa, aren't you keeping it? Because the beautiful Zara over at Kitten Chops reached out to me recently, and she very sweetly offered to send me her newest edition, the second edition of the Playful Heart Tarot, and I couldn't resist. The changes are very minimal, but there was a couple small changes that I was really, really excited about, so I decided I was going to rehome my first edition, and I'm going to keep the new second edition, which is already moved into my Playful Heart Tarot bag that Peggy made me some time ago. That is what my Playful Heart Tarot bag looks like. It's not actually Playful Heart Tarot artwork, it's fabric that just reminded me of the Playful Heart Tarot, so I was like, we need to get that so that I have it for the Playful Heart. Anyway, so this deck is still in order, and my old one is now back in order. The changes are really small, but one of the things I love about the second edition, hold on, let me see if I can turn these upside down, they're a little slippery, is that along the borders here, hopefully you can see, we have some color coding, very subtle, into the title, so you can clearly see which suit you're in, like green for Pentacles. We have that kind of pink color for wands, that sort of thing. There's a subtle blue for cups and a purple for swords. And I really, really liked that change. She also really kindly sent me the expansion pack, which includes some extra cards. So I'm not entirely sure. I've got them all in the deck right now, but I'm not entirely sure which of these cards are expansions. But these are bonus cards, and which of them came in the deck. But there's a few extra little, kind of like, I guess you could kind of call it like a mini oracle. There's like about, how many of these are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's now 12 bonus cards in the deck because she sent me that expansion pack. It was just a really sweet thing for her to do. She knows I love this deck, and I'm just really grateful to her for doing that. But that means that I can rehome my first edition to somebody else. So I'm not in a big hurry, but it'll probably show up in my Tarot Trade Tuesdays in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group. We do that every week. It's like a trade event that I host in the Facebook group. So I'll probably put it there, like, eventually, when I can get off my butt and update my list. But that is the only reason I'm getting rid of the Playful Heart Tarot, and it's only because I don't need 2 copies. I don't need a backup copy because, and I don't typically get backups, but I don't need a backup copy because this is printed on the most luxurious, sturdy, beautiful cardstock ever, and I just don't, it's not going to fall apart on me, so I don't need to worry about that. So I can definitely rehome my first edition without any fear whatsoever. So that is the only deck that I have decided I'm not keeping, I think, since the last anti-haul. So that brings us to mass market decks I'm not going to buy. So I don't know if you've seen, but I do this series also on the channel called Hot Takes on upcoming tarot and oracle decks. And that is where I kind of figure out, at least lately, that's been the point at which I figure out which things are really tempting me and which things I'm like, nah, easy pass. And so I'm trying to, in this anti-haul series, share with you the things that tempted me that I really seriously thought about but didn't actually buy, kind of talked myself out of. Okay, I scooted over so that we have room to put photos. So the first deck that I want to talk about is the Goddesses, Gods, and Guardians deck. Now, Peggy joined me for the hot takes, and I was kind of going a little gaga over this deck because it is one of the first decks I've seen that combines divine feminine and divine masculine. And can I just say that the backs of the cards have like a moon and a sun in a like cohesive design. If I can find a photo, I'll pop that up too. I just thought that was brilliant. It really captures the energy of this deck. I legitimately am super excited about it, but I also started thinking about the fact that I don't think, as much as I'm excited about this deck, I'm so glad it exists, I don't think I'll use it. I don't reach for decks like this very often in my practice in general. I tend to reach for oracle decks that I feel like are really expansive or that bring something. I guess I don't know how to quantify what it is I'm trying to say, other than that when it comes to decks I want to draw, people-y decks in general, and maybe that's what I'm trying to say, people-y decks don't tend to be the decks that I reach for. I tend to reach for decks that feel more blended in their messages, like they have more divinatory style messages, or that have a very specific theme that is not people-y. And I say people-y because even though these are divine figures, there's still a people-y element to the deck. And so anyways, I decided that I probably wouldn't use it, and I don't want to get it and have it just sit. So I decided not to buy it, at least for now. As you all know, sometimes I do cave, and I am working on a video to talk to you guys about all the decks I caved on or that I ended up with, even though I anti-hauled them. That's coming soon. But I just realized I wouldn't use it. That's the punchline. So what do I love instead? And the thing is, I don't have anything in my collection that has that divine feminine and masculine in equal balance. So I don't really have anything that strictly scratches that itch. But I do have a couple of divine feminine decks that I love, and one of those is the Goddess Oracle by, and this is my tried and true, my Goddess Oracle by Hrana Janto and Sofia Marashinsky. This is an absolutely beautiful deck. Someday I want to modify it. I want to take the sides off and the tops off so that it's more kind of borderless on three sides. But this is such a beautiful deck. The point here I guess I want to make is that I don't reach for this one very often because I work with I guess a more universal concept of deity most of the time. And because of that, I don't feel drawn to work with specific aspects of deity. And I think that's something else that I was realizing is like when I want to work with a specific aspect of deity, I'm going to go right to this deck usually, or I will go to my Witches of Legend deck, which is the other divine feminine deck that I have. But I'm not reaching for either of those super often because it's just not something that I do a lot in my practice. So I don't want to bring another one in, as tempting as it is, because again, it would be the only one I've ever had that has that really balanced masculine, feminine, divine energy. So tempting. Saying no to myself for now. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the Messages from the Ancestors Oracle deck, and this one tempted me in a very similar way, only what I was really picturing for myself with this deck was I was really picturing using it specifically with my past life readings. So I do a style of past life reading that's very unique to me, I guess is the best way I know how to put it. I approach past life readings in a very, very particular way. And one of the things I like to do is pull 3 cards from a deck to sort of get some initial context for what life it is that I'm tapping into for my client or for the querent, friend and family member, whatever it is, whoever it is that I'm reading for. And I've been using the Angels and Ancestors deck for that. And it's not perfect. It's really not. But this one felt like it would really do such a much better job. It feels like it's got really good archetypes featured in the cards. I felt like they were really universal. I really like the way it approached the sort of multicultural aspect of who is represented on the cards. It just felt really good. But, and there's going to be a but throughout this entire video. So just, brace yourself for all the buts. There's going to be a lot of buts. Anyways, I realized that I've recently acquired a different deck that fits so much more perfectly with my past life readings that I don't know if anything can unseat it now, and it is the Portals of Presence deck by Deborah Cove Chapin. This is a huge deck. It is literally as big as my face, which is appropriate because this is a deck of faces. I wish I could explain I could if I took a lot longer to make this video than I'm planning to, but the core, the heart of my past life readings is a combined deck I have of Soul Cards 1 and 2, which is by this same artist. She has a deck called Soul Cards 1 and a deck called Soul Cards 2. I combined them like 20 years ago, and I've been using that combined deck to do all the really deep soul work and past life readings ever since. These do not have any prescribed meanings, just like the soul cards do not have any prescribed meanings. So this is a very, very psychic, intuitive sort of deck for me, and as is the soul cards. So Portals of Presence is all faces. Same concept, but all faces. It's so powerful. And this just plays so well with soul cards for obvious reasons, because it's by the same artist. It's the same kind of art, which is, in my opinion, a really unique way of doing art called touch drawing. And it's really, really powerful. I have been using this in my last... I guess ever since I got it, really, I think I've been using this in my client readings and in my past life readings. And it's just been really profound, and it just worked even better than I could have imagined. And it's kind of so perfect that I just don't want to use anything else right now. So there's no point in me bringing in yet another deck that will perhaps get ignored because I'm using this one for my past life readings. And that's exactly how I pictured using this Messages from the Ancestors deck. And since it doesn't have a spot now, basically. Another mass market deck that I am not going to buy, I've talked myself down, I've talked myself out of it, is the Great Eastern Oracle. I was so tempted by this when it came out because I absolutely love the artwork in this deck is by Rasuli. If you've never seen Rasuli's artwork, I mean, it's so pretty. It's very flowy and dreamy and otherworldly and gorgeous. And I was like, I want more of this artwork because I have some of this artwork. And now you know where I'm going, because I did talk myself out of it. I was like, Lisa, you already have a deck by Rasuli that you love and you use all the time in a theme that you resonate with, that you really enjoy. And while the Great Eastern Oracle looks like one I would also enjoy, I am so bonded to my Rasuli deck, which is the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle. I love this deck. I really, really love it, and I do use it a lot. Let me bring it in front of my face. You can hopefully see the artwork without any glare, but it's glossy. I would love it if this deck, if I could get this deck in matte cardstock, and it's Blue Angel. Oh, come on now. There we go. It's Blue Angel, and Blue Angel has been releasing their decks in matte cardstock. I really, really would love this deck in matte, but until I can be guaranteed that's what I'm going to get, I don't want to repurchase it because I've already done that once and it came in and it was still glossy and I was so disappointed, and then I had to rehome that deck. I love this deck so much that I was like, well, I don't need anything competing directly with it because I love this one. So I don't think I'd reach for this one as often if I had two Rasuli decks to choose from. So I'm just going to have the one, love and enjoy the one. Except for if this ever comes out in matte cardstock, I will snap it up in a heartbeat and I will rehome my glossy one. So if you ever hear of it out in matte cardstock, or if, heaven forbid, someday somebody at Blue Angel sees this video and can let me know, that would be great, because I've totally reached out to them and they never got back to me. So I don't know, but I want that one in matte so bad because it glares terribly, but I love it and I would use it even more if it was matte. And that brings us to a deck that I have been nudged about a number of times, and it is really quite stunning. It is the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. This deck is so beautiful. It's really special. It's different. It doesn't really fit a mold. And I've looked at it on and off again quite a few times. If I remember correctly, this was first on Kickstarter. It looks, I believe it's now it's now mass market, and it is really accessible. It's like right at the push of a button. I could have it in just a few days, and that's very tempting. I don't know about you guys. Mass market decks are a special kind of temptation because with local booksellers that carry these decks like physically right on the shelf, I can just drive down the street and go pick it up off the shelf, or I can get it from Amazon, or I can get it from an online bookstore. They're very accessible, and I feel like it's because they're so accessible and because I'm not paying exorbitant shipping fees for them, it's really easy to say yes to myself, even if it's something that I'm like, maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't, but whatever, it's fine, it's mass market. Anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I find it really easy to say yes to myself with mass market, and sometimes I have to take that breath and go, okay, but will you use it, Lisa? Because that is the most important part. And when it came to the Intuitive Night Goddess, I appreciate it, and I think something I'm trying to work on is that I can appreciate something. I can be excited it exists. I can even, like, share it with other people who might want to use it, but that doesn't mean I have to get it myself or use it myself. Like, I'm not betraying this stunning or beautiful artwork by not buying it. Like, if it's just going to sit there, that's not helping anybody. So this one is one that I genuinely, truly appreciate, but don't think that I would use. So I was trying to think of what in my collection kind of gives me this vibe. It's not the same because I really don't think there's a lot that competes directly with the Intuitive Night Goddess Tarot. But I do think that the Enchanted Tarot, which is a classic by Amy Zerner and Monty Farber, I believe. Hopefully that's correct. I think this one actually competes with it pretty decently. The cards are gigantic. This is the 25th anniversary version of the deck. But to me, this has that kind of like, I don't know how you want to describe it. That sort of kind of collagey, but also kind of vintage feeling, except that this deck, it's so beautiful, but this deck has a lot of texture in it, which really excites me. There's something about texture when I can see, I've talked about this recently with a different deck, when I can sort of see the feeling of something, there's something about that I really, really appreciate and love. And this one does that really beautifully. In honesty, I don't really use this deck a ton, but I have used it, and I've gotten some really incredible readings out of this deck, and the guidebook is absolutely incredible. I really like the approach to the minor arcana in this deck. It's really, really great. And I feel like it's underrated. It's kind of underappreciated. At least currently it's underappreciated with all the new sort of fancy shiny things coming out. But this is really beautiful, and it comes in a really nice boxed set that has like one of these stretchy, kind of flimsy, but stretchy velvet bags that fits it perfectly because it's kind of an awkward shape. And this is one that I actually do keep in its original bag, which you guys know that's saying something because I am very bag spoiled. But this one, it's like kind of perfect because it kind of hugs it and fits it, and it's not as flimsy as most tarot bags you find in the mass market. I'm not spoiled at all. I'm going to stop ranting about bags now. But anyway, this one kind of scratches the itch, at least when I feel like, oh, I really want, should I get that Night Goddess Tarot? It's like, no. Just pull out my Enchanted, spread it out on the table, look at the artwork, appreciate it, play with it, and then calm myself down a little bit. So that does it for mass market decks I'm not going to buy. Let's talk about some independent decks I'm not going to buy. So the first of these was such an incredible temptation. And actually, even though this particular deck made me go a little bit head tilty, you'll see my actual live reaction to this deck, and particularly to at least one card in this deck and Peggy's reaction. If you check out my hot takes from not this month, but last month. So my January 2022 hot takes, I believe, is when it came up. I'll link it in the cards. But Peggy and I were looking at the deck, and one of these cards came up, and it was like a little bit racy, and we kind of had a little like, what was that? What am I looking at? But this deck actually really tempted me because I wanted to love the Dark Days Tarot, which is by the same creator, but it was black and white. And y'all know I love color. I have a thing for color. It's a rare deck that I will make an exception for that is not fully colored. But I wanted to love the Dark Days, couldn't get on board with it, but the Mother Tarot really caught my attention. And this is actually the second edition that was recently up for pre-order, and now I think it's just out. It's fierce. There's something about it that feels really empowering and really exciting. But I talked myself out of it because, and spoiler alert, if you have not seen my most recent Say Yes to the Deck video, I will link that in the cards. Just skip the next couple minutes, and because I'm about to spoil which deck I picked. I did pick in that video the Outgrow Yourself Oracle and Tarot, which I feel like gives me a lot of the same vibes, a lot of that sort of fierceness, a lot of that rawness, a lot of that kind of vulnerability and also empowerment that I feel like I get from looking at the Mother Tarot second edition. I don't have it in hand yet, but for now, I don't want to say yes or pick out a different deck that could potentially compete with one that I've literally got on the way. That brings us to possibly one of my greatest temptations since my last anti-haul, although I've got some Kickstarter things coming up that were pretty tempting. Okay, but this one I actually found out about literally just days before filming this video when I was chatting with a friend, and she was like, oh, blah, 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 this unicorn deck. And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me. What deck are you talking about? So she linked it to me, and it's called the Pastel Unicorn Tarot. The Pastel Unicorn Tarot. I'm going to I didn't buy it. I'm still kind of surprised at myself. I feel like I should have, but also I feel like I'm really picky about unicorn decks. And I've discovered this about myself. And I've also discovered that when you have a soul connection with a creature like I do with unicorns, you know, I should not say you, I want that creature to be represented in ways that I can personally connect with. And I kind of feel like, here's my issue with unicorn. Well, I just kind of feel like there is no such thing as my perfect unicorn deck yet. But I will just say that I was really tempted by this deck. And I'm not going to promise that I won't cave on it at some point. But I feel like it's just a hair off in one direction for me personally. Again, it's like the things I love the most are the things I'm the most picky about. So with that in mind, I was like, no, Lisa, because I have one other unicorn deck. Oh, I forgot to grab it. 1 second. Okay, I've got it now. I have one unicorn deck in my collection that I use, and even then, I've only really recently begun using it with any regularity, even though I adore it. Actually, I've got 2 unicorn decks in my collection because I've got my last unicorn tarot, which I love even more than this, but that's for different reasons. And anyways, that's not the deck I grabbed, okay? The deck I grabbed for this is my Crystal Unicorn Tarot by Pamela Chen. The artwork for this is by Lisa Higuchi. And I backed this when it first hit Indiegogo in, gosh, what is there a year on here? 2017. 2017 this hit Indiegogo. I totally backed it. And it's beautiful and it's adorable. It is a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. The Pastel Unicorn Tarot, in my opinion, is not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. It definitely is more, I guess, expansive. Hello, can we focus on the cards, please? Thank you. It's more expansive with the way that it illustrates. But this deck is fantastic. It's in order because I was using it for my Troubleshooting the Tarot live stream last month. But anyway, the point is that I use this deck a bit. And even then, again, it's not my perfect unicorn deck. That one hasn't been made yet. But the point is, I don't want to acquire more unicorn decks. As much as I love looking at them, as much as I appreciate them, as much as I'm glad there are more unicorns decks that are being created, I can't. I can't because I'm way too picky. So this one is the one that I tend to reach for and the one that I tend to use when I really want to work with a unicorn deck, or I will work with my last unicorn tarot, which I've talked about extensively on the channel, but I did not pull down to show you right now. But that is another favorite. But I tend to reach for it in different circumstances. So there's that. I'm not buying the Pastel Unicorn Tarot. At least not right now. If I'm still thinking about it later, I'll consider it. But for now, it's a no. Okay, that brings us to decks I'm not going to pre-order. So these are decks that I can't have in my hands right now, so I really have the time to think about it. And I'll be honest, I'm pre-ordering less and less and less these days. I feel like I'm pretty content most of the time to let a deck come out and see if I still want it at that time. And I think that's actually a really healthy approach for me most of the time. There are exceptions. I still back things on Kickstarter, although admittedly much less often than I used to. But I don't feel like I'm in a hurry for things the same way I used to be. I don't feel like I need to be first in line. I've mentioned this before. And I feel like I make much smarter purchasing decisions for myself and my collection / library of decks. I feel like I make better decisions overall if I tell myself I'm just going to wait till it's out and see if I still want it. Because I've certainly had it happen. And I'd love to hear from you guys if this has happened to you, where I've pre-ordered something or I've backed it on Kickstarter. And by the time I get it in, I realize I'm not that excited about it after all. It was more like a momentary thing. And I don't want to make purchasing decisions from that squee of the moment, if that makes sense. That like, oh, excited. If I made all of my purchasing decisions from that space, I would have way more than I could possibly use. And as it is, I already have technically more than I can possibly use super regularly. So I don't want to grow that from a place of impulse. I do enjoy impulse buying, and I do sometimes still impulse buy decks, but I'm trying to get into the habit of not pre-ordering very much. So most of the time, I already have talked myself out of it simply because it's pre-order until it comes out. But there are a few exceptions where I'm looking at them hard right now. I'm tempted right now. And so that's what we're going to talk about. The first of these is, this is a mouthful, Madame Lydia Wilhelmina's Tarot of Monsters, the Macabre, and Autumn Scenes. The award for the longest tarot deck name ever goes to the creator of this deck because that is a long name. But I have to say, this one every once in a while sneaks up on me, and it's like, oh, should I have gotten that when it was available because it was out of print for like a hot minute? Should I have gotten that when that was available? And I'll see somebody show it, and I'll be like, maybe. And now, finally, it is available for pre-order again. And I'm like, no, I don't need it. I don't need it. But it did tempt me for a minute. For a minute. Not for long, I will completely admit. This has a very grown-up, sort of spooky Halloween, autumn, obviously, kind of vibe. I mean, macabre, autumn, monsters. I mean, it all kind of jives, right? I have only so many weeks in spooky season to use decks, and this has been a challenge for me. And it's actually an area I think I technically need to do a little decluttering, because when October starts to near, I'm like almost panicking. Like, I like to work with a deck for at least a week at a time. I'm not one of those people that like kind of mixes and matches throughout the week my decks. It just doesn't feel good. I like to spend like quality time with my decks. So then October rolls around and I'm like, okay, I've got 4 weeks. I've got these tarot decks and these oracle decks, and how can I squeeze them all in, but also get quality time with them? And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll go a little into September and maybe a little into November, and I'm figuring it out. Like, it's fine, but like, I really don't need more in this category. So I was like, well, what do I currently have that sort of gives me that grown-up, spooky autumn, fall vibe? And I was like, Lisa, you have the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, which I apologize. I'm sorry. It is out of print. I believe there is going to be a reprint of this deck by Baba Studios. They have a list somewhere in their social media stuff where they mention that they're like planned pre-orders or planned reprints. And this, I believe, was on the list. This is one that I have almost rehomed once before, because it isn't, of all my Baba Studios, my very, very favorite. But it is really special, and it does have a really unique vibe, and I do really, really enjoy working with it. Hello? This was my first, okay, let's see if I can get this in away from the glare. This was my first Baba Studios deck, and it has some really wonderful energy about it. This one does not have any cold foil stamping on it. I assume that they will add cold foil stamping if they reprint this, because I don't think they're really reprinting or they're doing more decks without that cold foil. It's kind of their hallmark. But I kind of like that this one doesn't have it. Mind you, I probably would also like it with cold foil stamping. Anyways, I'm babbling. The point is, this is a really, really unique kind of Halloween, spooky, dark mansion kind of themed sort of deck. And it really brings you into all of that sort of spooky, gothic, vampiric kind of energy. But it's all just really, there's something about this artwork. I don't know how to describe it. You really don't know until you have one of the Baba Studios decks in your hands. And then you look at it and you're like, it almost feels more three-dimensional than other artwork. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's the kind of collage or like, because I feel like there is some collage elements to this, but it's the way that they do it, okay? It's some kind of magical Baba Studios thing. But it's lovely. And I've had some really fun readings with this deck. So this one's not going anywhere. And because it's not going anywhere, and it's fine. I don't need Madame Lydia's. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to get at. I don't need Madame Lydia's deck because I have this one that I love. And it scratches the itch, and we're good. Okay, the next deck that I was really tempted to pre-order is the Tarot of Dragons. So, if you are new to me in this space, or if you don't already know, I am very much a unicorn girl, and Peggy is very much a dragon butch. And so I have this major thing for unicorn and dragon stuff, and I have something to say, but I can't say it until I talk about the deck. So anytime I see a dragon anything come out, I'm like, is this going to be the thing that I could work with that makes me think of Peggy? I'm like, is this the one? Like, is this the one? Is this going to be it? And this one's really exciting. It's actually the mass market deck, because it is mass market, that has excited me the most, that is dragon themed, since the Celtic Dragon Tarot. And the only reason, the Celtic Dragon Tarot is beautiful. The only reason that is not a deck that I work with is because it switches the wands are air and swords are fire, and I just can't with the switched elements. I can't do it. So because of that, I don't work with Celtic Dragon. But this Tarot of Dragons that's coming out looks so beautiful and colorful and it gives me all the right feels. But I am currently waiting on my copy of the Smoke, Ash, and Embers Tarot. I'm holding it. I know, I can explain. The Smoke, Ash, and Embers Tarot by Three Trees Tarot, which is Adam Ohlers and Stephanie Burrows. They have partnered on this. They created the Oak, Ash, and Thorn animal deck as well. This is a prototype copy of the deck, and technically this is Peggy's copy. I'm waiting for my copy, and this deck is why I'm not going to go out of my way to pre-order the Tarot of Dragons. Although I could see both being in my collection. This one is giving me all of the beautiful, detailed, gorgeous dragon energy. Like, this is it. Like, this is my dragon deck. This is the perfect dragon deck for me. I'm really, really excited about it. Because I have the Smoke, Ash, and Embers coming, I really don't need another dragon deck. So I'm going to wait, work with this one, get to know this one. I have not worked with this copy because this copy is Peggy's copy, and I feel like it needs to be my copy that I work with. So maybe I'm fussy that way, but I'm waiting. Once I have the full copy, I will work with it, and then I'll know for sure, do I want more dragon stuff, or do I just want to stop at one? Like, I feel like a lot of these kind of more niche categories, I tend to stop at one, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And the third one, I just found out about literally this morning. So I am filming this just a few days before the video goes up on the channel. I just found out about this morning. I found out about from Miss Danny Mystic. There is going to be a Lord of the Rings tarot. As you can see, there's nothing. There's just a title. There's a title. It looks like maybe the cover of the book or the box or something, but it's probably not even that. This was just announced. So this is going to be by Insight Editions, and the artwork is going to be by the same artist that did the Labyrinth Tarot, which I love his art style. He did another tarot deck too. I'm spacing on the name. I can picture it in my head. I can't remember the name of it. If I can remember, I'll put it on the screen. But he did another one, and his art style I think would just work beautifully with the Lord of the Rings Tarot. I was tempted by this because anytime there is a pop culture kind of deck that I feel like I might know enough about, I get tempted. But I think if I reel myself in a bit, then there's a good chance that I don't know actually enough about Lord of the Rings to really get the most out of a deck like this. I have loved and read The Hobbit multiple times over, but the rest of the Lord of the Rings books I kind of fizzled on. And the same is kind of true of the movies. Like, I feel like I've seen versions of Hobbit movies like multiple times over, but Lord of the Rings movies, I feel like maybe I've seen most of them, but I'm not even sure if I've seen them all. So I'm like, It's kind of like when I was talking with Peggy during the hot takes about the Wizard of Oz tarot called The Shadow of Oz that I was tempted by. I realized I don't think I know enough about the entire Oz world or Oz universe to get the most out of a deck like that. And I feel like it's probably the same thing for me with Lord of the Rings. So I'm definitely not going to pre-order it. The other thing I realized is that there have been other Lord of the Rings themed decks. There was a Hobbit tarot. There was another Lord of the Rings tarot that came out in the 90s. I was reading tarot back in the 90s. I could have picked it up. I never have. So clearly it's not enough of a draw necessarily to pull me in. So I'm not going to impulse pre-order something that I'm not entirely sure that I will use. But I am very excited that it's coming. I'm excited for all the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans out there. I hope this deck meets all of your expectations. So far, the pop culture decks that have been coming out by this publisher have been pip decks or partially pip decks. So I'm expecting that to be the case. I kind of think that'd be okay for the Lord of the Rings tarot. Something about that feels aesthetically like it might match up pretty well. But it's worth knowing that that has been the trend so far. So if that's important to you, you may want to check that out before you press the buy button. But if you are excited about Lord of the Rings and you don't mind if it's got a lot of pips in the minors, man, scoop you up a copy and then tell me all about it, because I'll probably just be living vicariously through you since I'm not getting it for myself. That brings us to our final category, which is Kickstarters that I did not back. And I would also like to point out that one of these I very nearly backed, very nearly, we're talking, I was this close. And another one I backed and then backed out of, which I hate to do, but I needed to because I realized I wasn't going to use it. Let me get into it. So the first one is the Eorzean deck of 60. I have talked about this a few times in various places on the channel. Super tempted by this because this does not follow the traditional tarot structure. It is worth pointing that out. It is an entirely made up kind of fan thing. I'm pretty sure you can't get it now. If you didn't get it during the Kickstarter, you're probably out of luck. I'm sorry. This one really, really, really tempted me. I am planning to live completely vicariously through Dustin on this because I know he backed it. And I hope he's going to do something cool with it for a walkthrough. No pressure, Dustin, but like also, can you do something cool with it for the walkthrough? Because, yeah, anyway, a little bit about this deck. This is inspired by Final Fantasy XIV Online, the video game, lore. So there is a character class in Final Fantasy XIV called the Astrologian, and the Astrologian is a magic casting character class you can play that does spells that are based on the Eorzean deck of 60, which is like their tarot system. And there are links and some cool overlap between the Eorzean approach to tarot and historical tarot, so there is some cool overlap. This is somebody who was kind of geeking out on it, and they approached the Eorzean deck of 60. They made their own and put it up on Kickstarter, and this was their kind of vision of that. The art style is very different. Like in the video game, the art style of the Eorzean cards are kind of Art Nouveau style, whereas the person who created the Eorzean deck of 60 went to this like very traditional kind of tarot look, which is cool. It looks really cool. And I actually play an Astrologian, big shocker, in Final Fantasy XIV. And I was like, I would love to have this deck. And I was talking about it with Peggy. I was so close to hitting the button, and we were chatting about it. And I basically realized as I was talking to her that I would get this deck in, I would take it out of its packaging, I would enthuse over it, I would look through it, and then I would stick it up on a shelf. And it would just be a thing that I had collected because I wouldn't use it for readings. I know me. It has like a whole extra minor arcana suit. The majors is a totally different structure. It would be cool, but I wouldn't use it. So instead, when we were talking, I realized that if I wanted to get something that reminded me of Final Fantasy XIV, that I would probably invest my money. There's a couple of books that you can get that kind of go into all of the different things about Eorzea and Final Fantasy and the different classes and all that stuff. And those books are coming out later this year. New editions of them are coming out later this year. So I was like, I'll just get those. I'll get those. I'll enjoy actually having something I can read and use and get information out of. And I'm not going to buy this deck of cards that will literally sit on a shelf and not get used. But you guys, I was so close to hitting buy on this because it was like two of my current hobbies met, collided, and made this beautiful little baby that was really exciting to think about getting. And I was like, no, we don't need that. We don't need it. We don't need it. And I don't need it. But talking about it's a little hard because I kind of wanted it. But I'm going to live vicariously through Dustin and anybody else who got it. So if you got it, tell me, and tell me how amazing it is when you get it, please. Okay, thanks. Okay, the next deck I did actually back on Kickstarter during the funding period. And then during the funding period, I realized, Lisa, reel yourself in. I got so sucked in to this deck that I was like, I have to have it. It's beautiful. There are unicorns in this deck, or at least 8. In fact, I think there's multiple unicorns in it. It's really pretty. There's unicorns in it. Always a weakness. Always a weakness. In any case, the Maze Tarot is beautiful. So beautiful. It is a Marseille-styled deck, and I fell in love with it, if I'm being completely honest. The Major Arcana and the Court cards are absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. The minors are beautiful, too. The way this was illustrated, it is spectacular. It is so beautiful. I feel like I need more adjectives. One of the things that's especially cool about it is that there are pairs of cards that when you put them next to each other, you can tell that they're a continuation of the same scene. There's a lot of really beautiful world building, which you guys know is something that I am such a sucker for. And I'm really excited that it's going to exist. And I really wanted to buy it. I had to stop myself and be honest with myself about the fact that I am not a full-time Marseille style tarot reader. I have a few Marseille decks that I love. I have studied Marseille. I love the system. I enjoy reading Marseille on occasion. It's not my go-to. It is not my foundation. It is not the place I spend the most of my tarot time. And as it is, I feel like I have technically too many Marseille decks considering that fact. And considering the fact that for me, Marseille decks don't need to, much like Lenormand decks, I feel like they don't need a ton of variety. So I don't feel like I need a lot of them because I feel like the way that I read them is different than the way that I read Rider-Waite-Smith based decks or other system based decks. I just feel like I approach them differently, and I approach them in a much more linear or matter-of-fact kind of way, I guess, in which case I don't feel like I need this huge variety of artwork because I feel like I kind of read them all the same. So with that being said, I was like, but it's so pretty. And then I had to stop and ask myself, okay, Lisa, what is the prettiest Marseille deck you have right now? What is the prettiest, most exciting Marseille deck you have right now? And I have another out-of-print deck to show you, and I'm very sorry. And it's another Baba Studios deck. I have the Mythical Creatures Tarot. This one was on my wish list for the longest time because when I first found out about this deck, it was only available in black and white. And I found out not long after that, after I first found it, I found out that Baba Studios was working on a color version of this deck. It is absolutely beautiful. It does have all that gorgeous cold foil stamping. It has these really elaborately decorated Minor Arcana pip cards. See if I can get it in front of my face, see if it'll focus better. There we go. It's so pretty. Let's see if I can keep it in front of my face. There we go. And the majors and the courts do feature these mythological creatures. You shift it into light and all that cold foil stamping, it's just really, really, really beautiful. So when I really want to treat myself to this like luxurious, and look, that star card is obviously perfection. So I've got my unicorn. So yeah, I have all I need as far as a really elaborately detailed illustration, gorgeous Marseille deck. Why would I, as it is, I don't reach for this one as often as I could. With that being the case, why would I get another one? No, that just seems irresponsible. It seems irresponsible, so I'm not going to do it. But oh boy, was I so, I mean, I was more than tempted because I did it. And then I was like, Lisa, this is a waste. Like, it's just going to be a waste in your collection. So I talked myself down out of it, talked reason to myself, and I decided not to back it. It was funded. It's done really well for itself, and I'm really excited to see it. But yeah, I don't need that one. Okay. That brings us to the Cosmic Seekers Tarot. Oh my goodness. So this one came up during my last Hot Takes video with Peggy. I will link that. If I haven't yet, I'll link it. This, of the entire video we filmed together with all the upcoming releases, this Cosmic Seeker Tarot was probably the one that tempted me the most. It is really vibrant, really gorgeous. The illustration style is like everything. It's just vibrant. Did I say vibrant already? And colorful and pretty. And I love the thing they're doing with the artwork and the cards, and I want it. I want it, but I don't need it. I was trying to think of what I have in my collection that feels like it has that same kind of vibrancy, that same kind of art style that just, it's just juicy. And I realized I have 2 copies actually of the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, although I've put away and put into storage my full-size version of this deck because I really like this little pocket version. I like the cardstock. I like the fact that it doesn't have giant borders. This deck is so pretty. I love Raven Phalan's art style. It's really vibrant. It's really colorful. This is colorful and vibrant in the same way that I feel like that Cosmic Seeker Tarot is colorful and vibrant. So this really does scratch my itch for that style of artwork, and it still has the same kind of fantasy feel to it. And it's beautiful, and I don't use it a ton. I love this. I love the color. This is such a gorgeous deck. And I've done a lot of healing work with this deck and with the full-size guidebook that accompanies the full-size version of the deck. I've done a lot of work with it, and I think it has a lot to offer. So I don't need the Cosmic Seeker Tarot. And this one can definitely scratch the itch. It's also, to my knowledge, it's not quite a deck-sized box, but it's the closest, to my knowledge, that Blue Angel has ever gotten to producing a deck with a deck-sized box and guidebook. It's pretty close. And this is the little pocket one, so it's a little bit more like compact than the standard. And this just sits in my box basket with my mini decks, and I love it. I love it. And because I have this, I don't need the other one. There's only one more deck on my list for today, and it is the last Kickstarter that I didn't back, that I talked myself out of. It is the Kindred Lines and Enneagram Reflection deck. I mean, I think it's cool. If a lot of you probably know, I have gone down the Enneagram rabbit hole. I'm kind of enjoying reading up on the Enneagram. I think it's fascinating. I love psychology. I love personality type stuff. I love that stuff. I love geeking out on it. But I can't actually picture for myself what I would do with an Enneagram deck, because I feel like a deck meant for my specific type, or my type and Peggy's type, where I could put the cards together and shuffle them and it's like just about us, or just about me, or just about her. Sure. But like a deck that's maybe about all the types, I don't get it. I don't get how I would use it. Not that I don't get it. I don't get how I would use it. And maybe when I'm further along down the Enneagram path, I'll understand how I could use a tool like this. But for right now, it feels like I would just sit there. I wouldn't really know what to do with it. When it comes to decks that I think might help me with self-examination, it might help me with that sort of inner psychology, the deck for my collection that I feel like can kind of scratch the itch for maybe wanting something like this. And again, I was tempted to get the Enneagram deck because I was like, I'm into Enneagrams right now. It's beautiful timing. But no, I'm not gonna. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with it. But I do love Kim Cran's Archetypes deck. And she has another one that I'm really excited about. It's not out yet. Called I think it's just called the Alchemy deck, which I'm excited to learn more about. But this is a really cool one. If you want to kind of explore your inner psychology, this Archetypes deck is really cool. Archetypes are, I think sometimes we assume that they all must be from like the classical, say, Jung set of archetypes. But what Kim Krans has done here is created a whole set of archetypes. And an archetype to me is something that's relatable, or that's universal in some way, that has some sort of relatability to groups of people or to parts of us or something. And I feel like this deck does that very effectively. When I'm craving this sort of thing, this is the deck I go to. And I feel like this is the kind of space that an Enneagram reflection deck would fill. I tend to work with these cards usually like one at a time. There's really a lot to kind of chew on with each one. And I love this. I think this is fantastic. So this kind of scratches any itch I might have for a deck like the Enneagram reflection deck. And that brings us to the end of this anti-haul. There was quite a few decks that tempted me, but not as many as there could have been. And I feel like lately I'm not as tempted as easily. So it does take a lot for me to be like real enthused about something. And part of that is because I have a pretty wide variety of decks I get to use on a regular basis. So I'm less sort of sucked into the anticipation and excitement of the next new thing, but I still get there. I still have that experience. And I guess what I like about making these videos is that I get to kind of bring you along with me and kind of show you that I do have these conversations with myself, and I do ask myself, is this something I'm going to really, really use, or do I just want it because I want it? And that's a helpful exercise for me. It keeps me kind of coming at this tarot enjoyment from a place that feels healthy for me, that feels like I'm not over purchasing or mindlessly purchasing. I really like to think about my purchases, and I don't always. I don't want to give the impression that I do always. I mean, a lot of the decks I end up rehoming were impulse buys, or I'm just going to treat myself, or I'm not going to think about this one too hard. But when I stop to think about it, I say no to myself more than I say yes. And even more lately, I feel like, because I feel like I've got this beautiful variety of things, of decks and tools at my disposal that I love using. And what I don't want to have happen is that I have these beautiful things that I love and enjoy, and I love and enjoy them less because I keep just getting more and they keep getting forgotten or pushed to the back. I want everything to be visible and accessible, and I want to use what I have. And I want to also play with new things, but I want to be really careful and selective about the new things that I bring in, so that they're things I enjoy at least for a season before I feel like I'm done with them. You know what I mean? And I don't mind some of that. I don't mind bringing a deck in and using it for a while and realizing it's, that's cool. I had fun with it, but it's done now. And then passing it along. I'm okay with that. But I just don't want to do that thing where I go, ooh, shiny, and bring it in with no thought and then immediately regret it when it arrives. Or find that my excitement about it was for the thing existing, not because I really needed it. And then I get it in hand and I'm like, but I don't want to actually work with it. I just wanted to kind of look at it and go, that's pretty. So I'm trying to make the kind of content here on the channel that reflects that shows that you can enjoy and appreciate things and be tempted by things and be excited about them. You don't always have to buy them. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And I think it's just healthy for me to explore that part of it, and sharing it with you guys gives me more reason to explore that and to be aware of my motivations and things like that. So I enjoy making these. I hope you enjoy them as well. Thank you so much. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some things recently that you decided not to buy or to back? What did you talk yourself out of? And maybe what from your collection do you love instead? That's the whole thing I love about this is like, yeah, I'm not going to buy this, but I love this and I have this and I'm going to play more with this. I'd love to hear those kinds of comparisons from you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure and click the like button if you enjoyed the video or you found value in it. Subscribe if you're new here, and don't forget to click that little notification bell so you're notified of all my future videos and live streams. Thank you all so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye guys!